partnership with the Interagency Network for Education and Emergencies Accelerated Education Working Group, also called the INEE AEWG. I am Kate Lapham, and I am the lead for the Education in Crisis and Conflict Network. I want to acknowledge the various organizations and country contexts that are represented here by your attendance. It is wonderful to see so many people participating from across the globe and from across Africa. So welcome. I can see people calling in from East Africa, from West Africa, from USAID missions, and from INGOs and other civil society organizations. So it really is wonderful to have such a diversity of participation in our virtual room. Before we go on, I want to remind you that by participating in this event, you are consenting to be recorded in the main Zoom room. This allows us to make the footage available to those who cannot be here today. We also want to share some norms for today's event that will allow us to have a positive experience together. All participants should choose their preferred language channel by selecting the globe icon at the bottom of your menu screen. While our presenters will be speaking in English, you can select the French interpretation channel. English speakers may need the French translation if they join a mixed language small group for our discussion later. If you intend to join a French-only small group discussion, please add the letters FR to the beginning of your name by hovering over the 3 dots next to your name in the participant list and selecting Rename. This will help us get you into the correct room. I would also like to tell you that closed captioning in English is available from the same menu at the bottom of your screen. We ask that you please mute your microphone and turn off your cameras to minimize internet bandwidth unless you are speaking to the group. You can post any questions you have throughout the event by clicking on the Q&A icon in the bottom menu of the Zoom screen, and we will try to respond to all questions either during our presentation, in a dedicated question and answer session at the end of the event, or after today's event in a follow-up message. Now we can dive into our program for today. The topic of accelerated education is a priority for USAID's work in crisis and conflict-affected contexts. This webinar provides an opportunity to discuss questions and topics related to USAID's education in crisis and conflict learning agenda. Specifically, the section on equity and the questions, what education delivery modalities are the most effective at improving equitable access to education in crisis and conflict contexts? And what is the contribution of accelerated education to equitable access, learning outcomes, retention, and completion of education in crisis and conflict contexts? You can access the Education in Crisis and Conflict Learning Agenda by scanning the QR code on this slide or by clicking on the link in the chat box. I am now pleased to introduce my colleague and ECCN steering group member, Noura Ibrahim, who will serve as my co-moderator for today's event. Noura, over to you.
Thank you, Kate, and that's good to hear from you. Quickly, I'm happy to be here today to deliver this wonderful event. I'm a senior education program manager with USAID Nigeria. Also have experience working in the accelerated education program in the conflict and crisis area in Nigeria. I want to share our objectives for the webinar today. We hope to start by the end of today's event. You'll be able to identify where and how to access the INEE Accelerated Education Working Group resources, analyze the degree to which your accelerated education program use the effective practices, and appreciate how different stakeholders have leveraged the AEWG resources to enhance their accelerated education programs. If you are yet involved in the accelerated education program, that's okay. We hope this discussion will give you some ideas about where you can get started. We'll begin today's program with an introduction to the Accelerated Education Working Group and the resources we have developed. For this, I'm pleased to introduce the coordinator of the working group, Mata Harrison. Just to start, Mata has over 20 years of experience in education with a particular focus on post-conflict context and fragile states. She has technical experience in non-formal and alternative education, and specifically accelerated education in conflict and crisis. During her tenure as coordinator, the AEWG has thrived as a leader in the provision of education for out-of-school children and youth. I will now hand over to Mata to get us started. Mata, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Noura, and really happy to participate in this webinar. I would just like to begin by introducing the Accelerated Education Working Group. If we could have the next slide, please. So the Accelerated Education Working Group, or the AEWG, is part of the Interagency Network for Education in Emergencies. And it's made up of partners supporting and/or funding accelerated education programs globally. And the real purpose of the AEWG is to improve the quality of accelerated education through developing and disseminating tools and guidance. And we'll talk a little bit more about the tools and guidance in this webinar to ensure that accelerated education is a relevant response, and really importantly, to try and support a more harmonized approach to programming. So I'd like to talk about our 5 areas of focus. So the AWG has 5 areas of focus, and we work with governments to try and ensure that accelerated education programs are included by more governments in national education plans and policies. And in our national level engagement, we collaborate closely with governments to articulate ways in which ministries of education can really take a lead in regulating non-formal education provision. We do lots of national level workshops. We're doing one in Ethiopia next week, but we also are starting to have workshops at the national level where we bring multiple countries together. And that's a real opportunity to learn from each other, to learn about our successes and challenges. We also work to strengthen the evidence base for accelerated education to better inform program design and implementation. And we support and nurture existing and new research partnerships and present the growing evidence for accelerated education at various conferences. And just last week, I was at the UCFIT conference in the UK in Oxford, presenting some AE programs. Thirdly, we work with key stakeholders to really ensure that accelerated education programs are better resourced for scale and quality. And here we promote and advocate for the inclusion of AE within donor approaches and programmatic responses, and really importantly, try and foster the recognition of accelerated education as an important strategy that connects humanitarian, early recovery, and development programming. And we'll be hearing a little bit more how we've worked with a donor later on in the webinar. And we work to strengthen the resilience for learners, schools, and systems to respond to crisis. And we expanded this during COVID-19. This was the AEWG response to COVID-19, but now we've expanded this really just to strengthen resilience and systems to respond to crisis. And lastly, we have to go back, sorry. Lastly, we work to ensure to improve the quality of accelerated education, and that's largely through the effective dissemination and utilization amongst key stakeholders of all our tools and guidance. So now I'd just like to look at the 10 principles for effective practice. If I could have the next slide, please. So a large number of governments and donor agencies and NGOs have set up accelerated education programs globally to meet the needs of overage, out-of-school children and youth. And these programs vary widely and are of differing quality and effectiveness. And whilst there was a lot of guidance on quality education and education in emergencies prior to the work done by the Accelerated Education Working Group, there was no AEP specific guidance. So with the goal of strengthening the quality of accelerated education through a harmonized, more standardized approach, the AEWG have identified 10 evidence-based accelerated education principles. And these principles aim to clarify the essential components of any accelerated education program, and they're split into the 4 categories that you can see on the slide here. So learners, teachers, alignment with policy frameworks, and program management. And I think it's really important to say about these principles that they are specifically very generic because they're meant to be applicable globally. And it's really important to recognize the following, that the principles are aspirational and they're not meant to function as minimum standards of practice, but aspirational goals which AEPs should strive to achieve. They must be contextualized, which is really important, and adapted to suit the operating environment of your accelerated education program. And there are inherent tensions. Every principle has several action points below, and there's often tensions between the principle and the action points or between the action points. And we need to recognize that these tensions are unavoidable and that individual programs will have to set context-specific priorities for effective implementation. So I'm going just to go through very briefly the principles in a little bit more detail. So I'm going to start with the principles on learners. Next slide, please. So the principles on learners, principle 1 and 2 and 3, all these principles focus on learners. So principle 1 really look at the flexibility of accelerated education programs to meet the needs, the specific needs of overage learners. And as I mentioned, under each principle, there's a list of action points. Principle 2 talks about the curriculum, materials, and pedagogy, and also importantly mentions the relevant language of instruction. And principle 3, I don't know why it's blank here, but principle 3 looks at the learning environment. And the next section is around teachers. So principles 4 and 5 focus on teachers, and we talk about recruitment, supervision, and remuneration, which is really important. And in the action points, it talks about continuous teacher professional development, and that teachers, AE teachers, should ideally be part of the national system. And principle 6, it's missing as well, but that also talks about teachers. And the next section is program management, and that's principles 6, 7, and 8. So principle 6 really emphasizes the needs for goals and monitoring and funding to all align. And funding is specifically important, as often accelerated education programs are funded by humanitarian or emergency, but short-term funding, which doesn't allow learners who are too old to transition back into the formal system to complete the whole accelerated education program cycle. So that's where we do a lot of advocacy around longer term funding. Principle 6 looks at management of the accelerated education center, and principle 8 talks all about the important role of the community. And then the last area of focus is alignment with Ministry of Education and policy frameworks. So this really, 9 and 10 really talk about the importance of accelerated education programs being aligned with Ministry of Education policy frameworks. And this is super important to the AEWG. We really want to ensure that accelerated education programs are a legitimate education option that results in recognized certification. And then just to finish, the AEWG has developed lots of tools and guidance. If you can go to the next slide, please. And the principles are really the foundation of all of the AEWG tools and guidance, but we do have many more. We have a guide to condensing a curriculum for accelerated education. We have a monitoring and evaluation toolkit, which I would really encourage you to spend some time looking at, which contains a theory of change and some suggested indicators. We have a great one-page decision tree, which is really useful when trying to see if accelerated education is the most appropriate program for learners. And then we have some evidence review, we have a facilitator's guide, we have lots. So I would really encourage you to look. And where can you find these? If you can go to the last slide, you can find them all on the AEWG page on the INEE website. And I'd really encourage you, as I mentioned, to really spend some time and look through the resources that might be relevant for your program. And please reach out to me. We can share my contact if you'd like any more information or any more details about the AEWG tools and guidance and how to use them in your program. And lastly, you can scan on the QR code with your phone or click on the link in the chat box. So thank you so much, and I'll hand back to Noura.
Thank you, Mata. Thank you very much for that great overview. Now we want to give you an opportunity as participants to meet others who are working on accelerated education programs and discuss the 10 principles that Mata explained as they relate to your programs. Before the event, we asked you review the AEWG's Accelerated Education Program checklist. You can find this checklist linked in the chat box. You can check it. In small groups, facilitated by a member of our team, you will discuss one, how does your program align with the 10 principles for effective practice? Two, what are the constraints to being better aligned with the 10 principles? And what are the enablers? Right? We'll have 25 to 30 minutes for these discussions. We'll sort you into one of 6 groups. We have one French-only breakout group that will go to a breakout room, and one group that stays in the main room for both English and French. If you end up in a room in which you cannot communicate, leave the breakout room to return here. I will get you where you need to go. See you soon.
Nora, we just need a few more minutes to get the breakout rooms organized. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kim. So we're waiting.
Many thanks for your patience as we organize the breakout rooms. For those of you who are just joining and haven't had the opportunity yet, please do introduce yourselves in the chat with your name, your organization, and where you're calling in from. And we will be jumping into the breakout rooms in just a second. So a very warm welcome to those of you who are just joining now. It's great to see people calling in from Jordan, from Yemen, someone who's typically in Niger and calling in from Georgia, where I think it must be quite late in the afternoon. So thank you very much. From DC, from Egypt, welcome. And I know we are just trying to get those breakout rooms up and running. So as you think about preparing for the breakout rooms, we have put links in the chat to the checklist. It may be useful for you to make reference to those. I know there was a bit.ly link that someone had a bit of trouble with, and we've also put the direct links to the INEE website. So if you're having difficulty accessing those, please let us know in the chat and we will repost them. And again, thank you so much to everyone for your introductions. It really is wonderful to see such a wide range of participants here.
Join background room.
Okay, the breakout rooms are now open. You should see an invitation to join a room. If you do not, you have a breakout room icon in the bottom of your screen. If you do not see it, it should appear in the More option. And we will see you very soon. If you end up in a room where you do not speak the language, please return to the main room and enjoy our conversation there. Okay, Nico, I think you can take it away.
Hi, yeah, you sent me to room 1 with Martha.
Sorry about that.
I mean, it's fine to work with Martha again, but no worries. But
Okay, so this should be your group of participants. And I think if you want to find out if folks speak English or French or both, now would be a good time.
mm-hmm. Can't see if there are participants here.
There are participants here.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well? I cannot. Yes. Could you turn on the cameras, please? It would be easier for me to see who is in.
Yeah, sorry, I have connection issues today. It will be hard to turn on the camera.
Okay, no worries. Do we have here people speaking French? Est-ce qu'on a ici des gens qui parlent français?
Oui.
Okay. Okay. So, I will make this animation quite facilitation in at a speed that will allow for the translators to provide a French translation then. If you want to raise any questions.
I don't need translation. I'm okay with both.
Okay, perfect. Huh? Okay, fine. So welcome everyone. So I'm Nico, Nicolas Herbeck. I'm working at DG ECHO. So for those who do not know what DG ECHO is, it's the European Commission Civil Protection and Humanitarian Aid Agency. I'm a technical education expert and based in Amman, and I'm an AEWG member. That's why I was asked to participate in this seminar and to co-facilitate these breakout rooms. So let's play a bit with these, with the principles. So as Martha presented, the principles are split into 4 main categories. We have the learners, the teachers, the program management, and alignment with policy. Just a quick question from my side. Did everyone have the opportunity to go through the checklist and to be a bit the homework before the seminar? Yes? No? You can reply in the using the chat box. So we will look at the principles and action points during this session from mainly 2 categories. So let's start with the learners. So as you know, the principle 1 is about AEP that are flexible and for overage learners. And the action point 1A is mainly defining that the age range for AEPs it is for children and youth age approximately 10 to 18 years old. So basically, I would like you to indicate in the chat box to tell me the age range of learners in the AEPs that your organization is implementing. So I'm not sure I can see your answers in the chat box. Let me check this.
Nico,
Okay. 6 to 12.
okay.
Yeah, I can see that. 6 to 12, and the others? Okay. 9 to 12, 9 to 17, 5 to 15. Okay, interesting. So those who mentioned that that you have children that are below the age of 9, could you explain a bit the rationale behind this decision to have children under 10? I see. I'm sorry. Bretel Swift. Sorry, I'm sure it's not your name, but it is the thing that is written on your picture.
Yeah, it's my last name. My name is Mariam.
Okay,
And
Maria. How are you?
yeah, I think that where I'm calling in from USAID Nigeria in Abuja. And we start at 6 because we're also working in public schools, and we're acting on early grades. And from, I think, the 3rd grade until later. I mean, for the 12s and between 9 and 12, these are non-formal education beneficiaries, basically children who are out of school and youth. I'm not sure I'm answering your question correctly, but you asked why it's below 10, and it's because we have other activities going on that target children at a lower age.
Okay. So what are the thoughts of other participants here about children from 6 enrolled in AEPs? You know that in the principles it says usually that it's mainly for children starting at 10. And do you know, for instance, why it is recommended so, and the reason, and so a bit, yeah, to have a bit of your thoughts about what do you think about this this inclusion of children 6 to 9 in the AP?
I think I misunderstood your question. That's probably why I answered that way. I do agree with you that it doesn't make sense for them to be so young, and they are not. The age range that I gave you is for all our activities, not just for them.
Oh, no. Sorry, no, I was meaning AEPs. Yeah. Also, say.
I think for me, I'm Madden Abdi Ali, Somalia, Save the Children. So I think in our case, the AP program that we implement is targeting age between 9 to probably 16, 17. But then the purpose of targeting that is any age below 9 is considered as a child or a learner who is able to join a formal school. So despite other factors, like, for example, you will find in Somalia learners who may still wish to join informal school at the age of 9, because mostly what happens is that the learners first go to Quranic institution or Madrasa Quran, yes, where they're supposed to memorize the Holy Quran before they come to school in the formal school. So that means these learners, in most instances, you will find they will remain there at the age of up to even 8 or 9 sometimes to be in the Quran session, so that they are able to formalize themselves with the Quran and thereafter join formal school. But there are those who don't join school and may still tend to continue madrasa, which is also an institution of its own. But however, they can still join APE. So that is the reason behind the program targeting children at the age of 9 and above.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ali. I see Mokhtar, you raised your hand. Mokhtar, is it in this group?
I see Fatuma raising her hand.
Yes, Fatma?
Yeah. Hi, I'm
Yes.
Fatma from USAID Somalia.
Yes.
I just wanted to add to the conversation, especially for the Somalia one.
Yes.
Yes, we actually, the principal actually says that 9 to 10, 9 and above, but in some context in Somalia, within some communities, especially the newly liberated areas, you can find kids as children as young as 6 years, who has never gone to school, who don't have any other opportunity of going to school because there are no other schools in those communities. And you can also find older kids as old as 15 years, 16 years, who never attended school. And when they get this opportunity, sometimes you can't turn them back. So you will see a classroom where you have a 6-year-old and a 15-year-old. And so you just have to work with the teacher so that they can teach the different age groups. But in Somalia, in some areas where we don't have schools, we access the older and up to 15, up to 19, and also as young as 5, 6, 7.
Okay. I'm curious, is there any particular issues for teachers that the teachers are facing when they have to manage classes where children are sitting from 6 and 5 and 50 to 15, you mentioned, are sitting together?
Yes, because they need special training that the teacher should be able to teach multi-grades. Maybe you need to get teacher assistants who will work with the other younger kids when the teacher is teaching the old kids. So it has to be integrated within the teaching training, but the teacher facilitators that we get in some of the community actually don't have that quality, and it hinders the learning outcome. But in some areas, you will actually find, even when we see the photos the implementing partners are sending to us, those are the questions we ask, because we see a kid who is as young as 5 years sitting next to a 15-year, and we're like, okay, how are they learning? Because their cognitive, capacity is not the same, and
Yeah,
all
exactly.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I have a question for, I think it was Said. You mentioned that you have kids at age 5, and I'm curious about it. Where is it implemented? I don't know if Said can hear me well. It seems no. Okay, no worries. Do we have here in this room some agencies that have that are implementing AEPs where the opposite, I would say, where children are above 18, if you can call them children? Do we have such a kind of examples here in the group?
Say that again.
No, I was just wondering whether, because we said that the usual age range is from 10 to 18. So if we have examples of programs where the children are older than 18 in this group.
Yeah, in Somalia, actually, when we realized, you said Somalia, when we realized that the age group is actually going up to 25, like especially the young mothers who wants to come and get the basic literacy and numeracy, we designed another activity that's just focusing on young females aged between 15 to 25, to just train them the numeracy, literacy, but also add financial aspect where we were training them financial literacy. We included PSLS, We included other, job readiness training, and then connected them to the livelihood program so that they can continue. Because we realized that that group cannot actually sit with the young accelerated education, and the curriculum doesn't fit for their need. So we had to separate the two.
Okay. That's interesting. Any participant that want to react on this presentation so far? Okay, it's interesting because usually the age range is one of the most controversial or sensitive, let's say, criteria and subject to debates when we do these kind of exercises. Mainly because, as Fatma was mentioning, because of the cognitive development that the children have when I mean, cognitive development is an issue usually for children under the age of 9 or 10, and then usually after 18, basic literacy programs targeting mainly adults are usually the most appropriate kind of programming. But it's really depending on the context and the needs in every situation. Should we move to another principle? So we have a category of teachers, program management, alignment with policies. So let's try. Is there any of these categories that you would prefer to target? Any principle in particular you would like to discuss? So please share it in the chat box. Otherwise, I can suggest one. Anything in particular? No? Yes? Hello? Oh, somebody? No. Okay, let's pick up one then. I would like to have something about the continuous professional development of teachers, which is the principle 5. So who are the teachers in your AEPs, and how are they supported in terms of professional development, in terms of mentoring, in terms of pedagogical skills, etc.? If is there somebody who wants to share a bit the experience you guys have in your respective AEPs around that? So mainly about how AEP teachers can benefit from continuous professional development. Fatma,
Okay.
is it an all that?
Okay, if I share my perspective on Somalia,
Yes.
The quality of teachers is very low, especially when you working in the remote areas. And because of security, again, the movement of teacher from one place to another is very risky. So what we usually do, we are actually we are forced to train and get a teacher within the community that we are working in. Sometimes you will get like a high school leaver, if you get a high school leaver, you have to train them. The training that the implementing partners give is very like induction training, 7 days, which is not relevant for, that person to come on board and train the curriculum and run with it. But we added like frequent check-ins, like they do in-service training. Every time the schools are closed, we do trainings for them. And then we work with the technical teams
from the sessions. Thank you for taking more depth at your program. and we hope you have seen how your programs align with the principles as explained by Marta prior to the breakup. Just to let you know, the purpose of this breakup is not to evaluate the programs, but rather to highlight potential areas of improvement. For example, I'm sure that in your program, you identified principles that are more difficult, perhaps, to meet in your context, depending on your regions and country, or principles that may be currently unmet but attainable. And those are some of the 10 principles if we look at it differently. Also, you can use the checklist using this information to maybe list short and long-term actionable steps to improve program quality, right? The purpose of this exercise is a reflection and learning, and the EEWG hopes that such an exercise may be useful as you seek to improve the accelerated education program quality, right? Now that you've had the chance to discuss some of your programs, we have the opportunity to hear from a donor in this space where Marta will moderate these conversations. Remember also to add any questions you have about this conversation by clicking on the Q&A icon in the bottom of your Zoom. So I'll quickly hand over to Marta. Marta, over to you, and thank you.
Thanks, Noura. So it's me again. So I would just like to welcome Nicholas Erbeck, who is the thematic expert for education in emergencies in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Northern Africa from the European Commission for Humanitarian Aid, or ECHO. And Nico joins us today. And Nico is also the representative on the Accelerated Education Working Group. And today, Nico and I are going to have a conversation about how a donor, ECHO, has really utilized the AEWG tools and guidance in their education in emergencies programs. And if you remember from the initial presentation, when I described the 5 areas of focus of the AEWG, I said that one of our areas of focus was really trying to work directly with donors. So welcome, Nico.
Hello.
So I would just like to ask you, Nico, oh, sorry, do you want to say hello?
Everyone, yeah, hello again for those who I did, had the opportunity to meet during the breakout rooms. Hello.
Thanks, Nico. Sorry, I was in too much of a rush there. So Nico, can you explain why ECHO has utilized the AEWG tools and guidance, please?
Yes, sure. Well, the first reason was really to raise the quality of the accelerated education programs that ECHO is funding, and also for one reason that you explained in your introductory session. Because in many contexts, we realized that there was a lot of a big variety of AEPs that were rolled out and implemented at the same time in the same country by various actors, and so we really wanted to support the harmonization of programming among the different stakeholders. In many instances, also. We realized that the Ministry of Education was not really in the leadership in this programming, and it was also an issue in our view. Also because the AEWG has developed tools and guidance that are accessible, that are simple, that are designed in a way that is quite user friendly, and it's really they are really aimed at to be used by implementing partners, but also by governments in the field, and it's really something that we want to support.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's really important, and I think that's something that the AEWG has done a lot, working at national level to really try and harmonize programs, but by working closely with ministries. So please, can you tell us how ECHO has utilized the AEWG tools and guidance to influence accelerated education programming amongst stakeholders?
Yes, Well, first of all, education in emergency for ECHO is not very old. It started in 2018. So in 2019, we have developed our education in emergency policy, which defines the ECHO strategy when it comes to education. And we decided to include the AEWG tools and guidance in our strategy. We have a dedicated annex, for instance, that refers specifically to the decision tree that was developed by the AEWG. Because again, it will, in our view, it will support the quality of the education services that are provided to beneficiaries. Also, we have included in any call for proposals that ECHO is launching, usually at the beginning of the year, we have included in their references to the AEWG tools, and we are also strongly encouraging our partners to align with the 10 principles for effective practice. So all our HIPs, so the humanitarian implementing plans, but also the technical annexes, etc., that our partners are using when designing their proposals, include these reference to the AEWG tools and principles. And then lastly, I will mention that we are quite proud also because we have supported as ECHO the Global Education Cluster to develop the rapid response toolkit to include education in rapid response mechanisms and to rapid educational responses. And we have also used the AEWG tools in this toolkit. I mean, the toolkit is referring to the AEWG, but also the indicators, which is quite interesting to us. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I mentioned in my initial presentation around this toolkit with these suggested indicators. So I think it's really interesting that ECHO is actually trying to align with these indicators. And, you know, I think that's a really helpful thing to do. So you've talked about using all the tools and guidance in the humanitarian implementation plans and in your call for proposals. So could you give us one or two concrete examples of the use of the AEWG tools and guidance in programs that ECHO has funded?
Yes. Well, in terms of harmonization, we have a nice example, an ongoing example, which is in Kenya. Again, there was a strong variety, very different programs that were ongoing at the same time in the country, in the refugee camps in Kenya. And we have supported the harmonization of these accelerated education programs under the leadership of the Ministry of Education and all the various stakeholders that are involved in this programming in Kenya. And very interestingly, the Ministry of Education has decided not to limit its harmonization on the accelerated education programs only, but also to include in this harmonization process the various types of non-formal education programs that are implemented in Kenya. So mainly the catch-up programming, but also the remedial bridging programs, etc. So this is a very, I would say, emblematic tool. Use of the decision tree that has been developed by the AEWG. Another example at more regional level is the upcoming workshop that is going to be held in Latin and Central America in November, if I'm not mistaken. That ECHO is supporting. That is going to put up together 8 countries together and to try to discuss a bit what is implemented in the various countries and to see how to align with the principles and with the support of the AEWG. Yes, these are a few examples. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, I think the AWG did a regional workshop in Western Central Africa last year in November, where we brought 8 countries in that region together, and it was really rich. It was a great experience, I think, for ourselves to learn, and also for countries to learn from each other and exchange ideas. So we're doing the same in Latin America and the Caribbean and Colombia, like you say, and ECHO is supporting this with 8 countries from that region. So maybe the kind of last couple of questions. So what do you think this has resulted in for accelerated education programs for ECHO that ECHO funds? You've talked about, you know, the Kenya workshop or work going on rather, and you've talked about these regional things, but what has it resulted in for specific accelerated education programs that ECHO funds?
I think one of the good points is that the focus on quality, but the quality that is also aligned with the global evidence-based good practices. Also, for instance, one example, and this is really concrete example of a need that emerged during the COVID-19. Is in Central African Republic, one of our partners has developed, with the support of the Ministry of Education, a catch-up programming that is aligned also with the 10 principles for catch-up that were developed by the Ministry of Education, by the AEWG, sorry. And then there is well, yes, again, the harmonization of AEPs at national level, all the stakeholders that are working together. These are for us concrete results in raising the quality of the programming that we are funding, and these are the main results that we are proud of at ECHO.
Great, thanks, Nico, and thanks for making time to have this conversation. So I would just like to hand back over to Noura, and he's going to introduce a video that the Accelerated Education Working Group made on the accelerated education work in Nigeria. Thank you, and thank you, Nico.
Thank you, Marta, and thank you, Nico, for that wonderful conversation. Quickly now, we'll share a short animation about accelerated education work in Nigeria. This video was made by the INEE Accelerated Education Working Group. It is not an ECCN or USAID production and does not feature an activity implemented by USAID production and does not feature an activity implemented by USAID partner, but rather shows the overall picture of how Nigeria has worked hard to institutionalize AE into the national education system. Just to also get us along, the aim of this short animation is to demonstrate how the government and stakeholders in Nigeria have integrated and advocated for the integration of the Accelerated Basic Education Program, or what we call ABEP, into national education plans and policies to strengthen systems to meet the need of learners who cannot participate in mainstream schooling. So let's roll the tape and watch.
In Nigeria, more than 10 million 6 to 11-year-olds are out of school. That's around 1 in every 4 children. Another 10 million adolescents ages 12 to 14 and many more youth ages 15 to 18 are unable to access formal education. And this number has been increasing rapidly in the past decade. Some young people are out of school because of conflict and displacement in the north of the country. But the problem isn't limited to that region. Throughout the country, young people in poverty may never enroll or drop out early. Girls may be pushed out of school because of early pregnancy, child marriage, or cultural and social norms that prioritize boys' education. Many children in Sangaya education also lack access to formal learning opportunities. and the number of children who are out of school in the South is growing. The Accelerated Basic Education Program, or ABEP, is an educational option for 10 to 18-year-olds who cannot participate in mainstream education and are overage for their grade. In ABEP, learners complete their basic education in 3 years or less. They can enter at the level that is most appropriate to their current skills, so they don't have to start from the beginning. If they catch up to their grade level, they can return to formal school or vocational education with their peers. And when they complete the entire cycle of ABEP, equivalent to Junior Secondary 3, they can sit the Basic Education Certificate examination and receive their certification. That is because ABEP is fully approved by the National Council on Education. In fact, let's take a walk down memory lane to see how this came to be. Nigeria has a long history of non-formal education, but it wasn't until 2014 that accelerated education emerged in response to the Boko Haram insurgency. While many organizations operated accelerated education programs, there wasn't a nationally accepted program in the country. So in 2018, under the leadership of the Nigerian Educational Research and Development Council, a task team of education partners was formed to strengthen accelerated education. They created an implementation framework and a curriculum for ABEP, which were approved in 2019. Then, with support of the Accelerated Education Working Group, a global group of partners working on accelerated education, they developed training for ABEP teachers. From 2019 to 2022, the ABEP model was tested in the northeast of the country. After the pilot, the program was officially launched by the Honorable Minister of Education in a national rollout. But there is still work to be done. Now, the task team is supporting states to run ABEP around the country. They're advocating for funding within state budgets for ABEP. They are prioritizing ABEP in education policies, plans, and even in law. And they are training more and more ABEP teachers. Making sure that ABEP becomes a national priority is critical. And integrating ABEP in policy, law, and funding is key. This will ensure that ABEP has the resources and support needed to help millions of out-of-school children and youth continue their education and growth and have better life outcomes in the future. You can support ABEP in Nigeria. Contact the Nigerian ABEP task team to learn more. If you want to support the integration of accelerated education in your context, visit the Accelerated Education Working Group's website to learn more.
Thank you. I hope you have enjoyed the video. If you have any questions about this video, you can add them to our Q&A window at the bottom of the screen as we're collecting them for our own responses too. Thank you. You can post any questions you have about anything we discussed today in the chat box. We'll collect responses from our panelists and send them in a follow-up communication. I will now hand over to my co-moderator, Kate, and thank you all. Over to you, Kate.
Thanks so much, Noura. Everyone, thank you so much for participating. I really hope that you have enjoyed today's conversations and presentations. As Noura said, we will respond to questions in the chat and in the Q&A function in a follow-up message. We have just a couple of minutes left. And so as we close out, if you would like to post in the chat, one thing that you might do differently in your accelerated education programs now that you have attended this event, in addition to your questions. That would be fantastic. I can see that there are questions in the chat about learning outcomes, about delivering AE programs in non-state settings. There are questions about teachers. I think these are all incredibly important. So as we close out, I also wanted to remind you that if you enjoyed today's event, please be sure to use the Accelerated Education Working Group resources. And if you are not already, please do join the Education in Crisis and Conflict Network. The link to ECCN's LinkedIn page is available in the chat box. Lastly, you may know that International Literacy Day was on September 8th. USAID has been celebrating all month long by hosting a series of events and publishing resources. You can find out more by using the QR code on this slide. And I hope you will join in, attend, watch recordings, and benefit from the other events and resources out there. Thank you so much for joining our event today. We are happy to have had the chance to engage with you on this vital topic. So wishing you a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks again for your active participation.